I love old classic cars. I mean, I really love them. There's just something pure and raw about them, but they are not without their mechanical challenges. And well, I thought this was gonna be the time, this was gonna be the video that we were gonna take this out on the trail, on the dirt, and reveal it to you guys for the very first time. And well, you can see that I'm in the garage. It's up on jack stands. There's parts laying around, and well, we're not doing a reveal of the 74 Cherokee on this video. However, what I would like to do is sit down with you guys for a cup of coffee, talk about some things that are going on here at TrailRecon, and I'll explain why this 74 Cherokee still, after 10 months, is not ready for a full-blown reveal. I love this thing, but man, I want to get this on the trail soon. Stay tuned. Welcome to TrailRecon. I'm Brad, and today on this episode of Coffee One Take, I'm going to bring you up to speed on several things that have been going on here at TrailRecon, plus some of the things that kind of haven't been going on, which is the 74 Cherokee, which is, I'm in love with this thing, but she is frustrating me a little bit. But you know what? We haven't done a Coffee One Take in about 3 months, and that's on me. I was planning on doing these every month, and I'm going to get back in that rhythm, but things have been pretty crazy busy, and I just enjoy sitting down with a cup of coffee and chatting with you guys, and I know that some of you really enjoy these videos, so I'm going to try to make sure that I'm pretty consistent with pushing these out every month. Now, if you are joining us for the first time for a Coffee One Take episode, this is not like all the other videos that I do that are highly edited and have all kinds of B-roll. This is just raw. I turn the camera on, I hit record, I sit down and grab a cup of coffee. I got a couple notes that'll keep us on track, but we're just hanging out and talking about some things that are going on. So let's dive right in, starting with tomorrow. Regina and I leave for Moab, Utah. We will be out there for Easter Jeep Safari. So instead of drinking coffee here at home, I will be drinking coffee on the road for the 13-hour drive to get out there, and we're going to take 2 Jeeps. She wants to bring her little yellow Jeep, and I'm going to take the new 392, and we're going to spend the week out there just having a blast. We got some trail rides planned, we got a meetup planned, we got several things going on out there, but really we just want to get to Moab and go hit the trails. That's what we're really excited about. So if you are going to be out at Easter Jeep Safari, and if you see us out in town or you see us out on the trail, please come by, say hello. We'd love to shake your hand. You know, we can do that now that COVID's gone. We can shake hands again. I would just like to shake your hand and say thank you for supporting the channel and being a follower. So please, if you're going to be out there, come by and say hello. Also, we've got big plans this year. We're going to do all 4 Overland Expos. So there is the one in Flagstaff, there's the one in Colorado, the one in Virginia, and the new one that they're doing this year up in Oregon. And Regina and I are going to all 4 of those, and we plan to make trips out of each of those. So hitting some cool spots on the way to those places and on the way back, doing some camping, hitting some trails, and hopefully getting to meet so many of you guys along the way and at those events. So keep an eye out for those events. We will be there this year. And then we've got some really cool stuff that we are working on. I don't know if you watched the last trail video where I gave the trail a trail grade system, something that you guys have asked me to do, but I've never done in the past, and so I finally committed to doing it. And so I'm going to grade our trips and our trails that we're on in 3 categories. And this is part of a bigger project that's coming, but what you're going to start to see is I'm going to give a trail rating for scenery and points of interest. So how beautiful was the trail? How many cool things were there to see along the way? For engaging, how engaging was that trail to drive? Was it exciting, or was it just cruising back on an easy dirt road? Not that one is better or worse than the other, just we want to give grades on that. And then the last one is do it again factor. Are these trails, are these trips worth doing it again? And we're going to start putting more and more of those together and compiling those. And then I'll share with you soon why we're compiling all those. It's something I've been working on for a while. Regina and I are super excited about it, and she's helping a ton. It's going to be very cool. But you're going to start seeing those trail grades more and more as we go along. So that's kind of coming. What else is going on? Comments. I want to talk about comments, whether it's here on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. I get up every morning and I sit down in front of my computer and I pour a cup of coffee and I try to answer and read as many comments as I can. And you know, in the beginning when I first started TrailRecon, it was easy. I was just responding to everybody. And now sometimes I can just, you know, hit a like or a heart on a comment. I don't have time to sit there and respond to all of them. But I appreciate the comments. It's really great to hear your thoughts, your opinions. Sometimes your constructive criticism. Sometimes there's, you know, a comment or two that'll get under my skin, and I just hit that hide button or delete button because I don't ever want to see it again. That's just part of being on, you know, the internet and social media. There's people in the world that are, you know, they're just mad all the time, I think. But I'm so thankful to hear about your comments and your stories when they're positive, because it makes me feel better. And I got one that I just want to share with you, because it's comments like this that really keeps me going. I mean, I read this and I got a little choked up, and I just want to say thank you, David Walker, who is the one that wrote this comment. I'm going to read this to you guys. My 15-year-old son has been following and watching your YouTube channel for a while now. He got me to start watching some videos and showed me the father and son trip. And I think he's referring to the trip that my oldest son and I did up to Wyoming, where we spent an entire week, and my son planned that trip. One of my favorite videos, by the way. He told me that's what he wanted to do for his spring break trip last week. So we packed up the Gladiator and drove from Kansas City to Denver to rent an off-road trailer, then to Moab, Zion, Monument Valley, and Canyonlands, and back home. Sounds like an amazing trip. We stayed in dispersed sites, and I have to thank you, because if it weren't for your channel, I would not have had the greatest spring break I've ever had in my life, and I'm in my 50s. Sincerely, thank you, and keep making great content. David, I'm so glad that you had that amazing trip with your son and made those memories. For me, those are some of the most special moments that I've ever had, whereas when I'm out with family or friends and just doing some epic stuff. And so guys, if you have stories like that, share those. I would love to hear about them, and I know others that are reading the comments would love to hear those about them as well. So anyway, that's it. I do read all your comments, I promise. It's hard for me to respond to them all, but I try. I really, really do. Sometimes it's 2 cups of coffee trying to get to the comments in the morning, but I do try to do it. All right. You guys ready to talk about the 74 Cherokee? So we're going to rewind a little bit. 10 months ago, so I was in Arizona. We were coming back from a trip there, and I got a lead on this 74 being for sale. Now, I had the 79 Cherokee, and I knew that I was going to sell that. And the reason that I sold the 79 was because I could not get it smogged here in California. Let's not get into a big debate about that, but I just couldn't do it. And yes, there are ways around it that are not ethical, and I wasn't going to do that either. And the rust repair was going to be a massive undertaking, and it was going to cost me more than I paid for the vehicle. And so while I loved that Cherokee Chief, I especially loved the fact that it was a wide body, and I loved that blue color. I sold it, and I sold it to a gentleman up in the Northeast, and he was a retired auto body guy, and he had already owned, I think, a Wagoneer and a Cherokee. So that thing has already gotten a lot of love. It's probably back on the trail, unlike this one. So I was able to test drive this one, give it a good rundown, and I was like, man, this is great. It's all there. It's complete. It's in pretty good stock condition. Just needs, you know, a little bit of touch. It's got some nice patina on the outside. And so I bought it, and I had it shipped out here to California, and that took a couple weeks, but we made that happen. And I got it, and I was super excited. I drove it to the DMV. The very first time I was driving it at all, I was driving it to the DMV, which was about 15 miles away, and I lost oil pressure, and it started to get pretty hot on me. And so I pulled over immediately and had it towed to an engine rebuild shop. Yeah, that was my first drive in the 74 Cherokee. So I had the 401 engine, so it has the AMC 401 completely rebuilt. Now the problem is there was a lack of parts, because getting parts for a 401 is somewhat challenging versus some of the other engine models. But plus, the parts access right now in the world is just hard to get. And there was the place that I took it to, you know, they were a little short on manning, and so it took 4 months to get that engine rebuilt. And finally got it rebuilt and drove it home, and I was able to drive it around for a couple days, just getting to know it, and I was like, man, the leaf springs, the suspension was pretty much shot, and I kind of knew that when I got it. So I was like, before we go hit the trails, I need to get a lift kit on here, or at least some new leaf springs. Well, I didn't do enough research about the 74 because the 74 has a very unique leaf spring package that you can't just buy off the shelf, and so I had to take it to a local leaf spring shop here and had them redo the leaf springs. They actually rebent the leaf springs in the rear, and then we were able to purchase some in the front, all new bushings. And so the ride height is perfect. It sits great. Drove it around, again, just kind of getting a feel for it. And it was stalling all the time, and I couldn't figure out why. And come to find out, there's a venting issue with the fuel system. So the fuel system, it's not the original fuel tank, and whoever installed that fuel tank, let's just say they did not do a great job. And so there are kinked hoses from the where you put it in the gas and to it drains is kinked, and there's venting hoses that are clogged and some that are just venting to nowhere. In fact, I filled it up with gas and came home, and it was a hot day, and all of a sudden I noticed that I smelled gas, and well, the gas had expanded because it was a full tank and started just spewing out the vent hose into my driveway. I mean, I love classic cars, I do, but I've started to get pretty frustrated with it. So I made some temporary fixes to that. I have some hoses and stuff that are coming that are going to make that work, but I got at least the venting hoses taken care of. And so I was driving it around again for a couple more days, and I was coming down a pretty steep hill, and it stalled on me. In fact, what I realized is every time I was going down a steep decline, not incline, decline, it would stall on me. So there's a carburetor, probably a float issue that needs to be adjusted. That's not a big deal. I can take care of that. But the biggest deal is we went for a drive. I took Regina for the drive-in at the very first time. So I've been driving it around for several months, a little bit. I think that's an overstatement. Driving it here and there, just kind of getting a feel for it, working out the bugs. But the first time I took her for a drive-in, we were coming back, and we were about 1.5 miles from the house, and something wasn't right. I kept hearing this crazy grinding noise up front on the front driver's side. The steering was feeling kind of jerky a little bit, and then the vehicle almost felt like it wanted to stop but kept going, and I was like, something's not right. So we limped home. Thankfully we weren't on a major road. We were able to limp home, came home, and I pulled in the next morning. I pulled the tire off, and I was like, well, maybe it's something to do with the brake caliper. And so I pulled the brake caliper apart, pulled the pads out of there. There was absolutely no meat on those pads. They had been completely grinded through. The rotors were scored to death. And I was like, all right, well, I need to order some new rotors and some new pads. Well, that was not an easy feat. To get rotors for 74 Cherokee took a little bit of work and a little bit more time. And so there's all these delays that have happened. And so just a couple weeks ago, I finally got the rotors and the pads in. I was excited. I'm like, man, I'm going to get these on. We're finally going to go hit a trail with this thing. And I guess I didn't realize that it's not a simple brake job like a modern day vehicle. You have to pull the entire hub assembly apart. And so I started to pull the cap off of the outer hub, and there were bearings laying inside the hub, and they were rectangles and mangled and didn't resemble anything like bearings, and they just came out with a bunch of metal flakes in there as well. And so I was like, all right, well, I got to pull this hub off anyway, so let's just start pulling this apart. And so I didn't have the right tool. There's a special tool you need to get it off. I tried doing it with a brass punch where there's like this locking nut that has these keys in it. And I tried using a brass punch to get it to move, and it wouldn't move. So I ordered the tool that I needed. In the meantime, I ordered all new bearings and seals for the hub assembly. Got all that stuff together, sat down in the garage, was ready to do it, and I couldn't get the thing apart. Like the inside it must have been so much heat or something from when that bearing destroyed itself. Things were fused in there, and so I spent the good part of 4 or 5 hours trying to pull that hub assembly apart. And I got the majority of it apart, but the race that the bearing seal on is this metal piece is pretty much fused to the spindle. And the spindle is this big long assembly that everything attaches to. And I couldn't get it off. And I've tried several things. I tried heating it up. I tried putting it in the freezer. I tried doing relief cuts, banging it with a hammer. I exhausted all efforts for about an hour and a half trying to get that thing off. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm out. I need to order a new spindle. And so that's where I'm at right now. That's where she sits. So I've got all the parts to rebuild the hub, to put new brakes on there. Now I'm just waiting on a new spindle assembly for this side, and then I need to tackle the other side. Now I'm hoping the other side doesn't have the same problem. Hopefully it just comes right apart and I can put it right back together. And then eventually we will get this 74 Cherokee out on the trail. I have been super excited to share this with you guys and go on some trips. This is such a cool vehicle, and there's a lot that I want to share with you, and I don't want to give it all away. That's why we're not doing like a walk around of this today, because I don't want to do that. I want to show you up close with some really nice camera shots what this vehicle looks like. It's really cool. It does look nice, but man, I love classics. I really do. And I love coming in the garage and tinkering with it, but it needs some more work before that happens. And a lot of you guys are going to be like, oh, Brad, you should be filming all this. And I just, if I was filming some of this stuff, one, it would take forever. Filming projects in the garage is a little more work. And sometimes we'll do that, but this is not what I wanted this to be. I didn't want this to be like a TrailRecon classic car garage restoration, because I want this channel to be about adventures, outfitting our vehicles and going out and having great adventures. And that's what I want to do with this. I've got some classic gear I've talked about in the past, and I want to go kind of, old school camping. In fact, my wife got me some clothes from the 70s that she wants me to wear when I take this out for the very first time. So I'm going to do that. It'll be kind of fun. I want to have some fun with this thing. And I think it's important to show folks that, we do a lot of, big vehicle builds, and we spend a little bit of money on outfitting our vehicles, but you don't have to. You can find yourself a classic vehicle, outfit it with some basic gear, and go have some great adventures. It's just, how much do you love working on cars? I do love working on cars. I hope this doesn't come across as I'm complaining. I'm not complaining. I do love the classics. I love coming in the garage and working on this thing. I do. It's therapy for me to come in here for an hour and just tinker on something and get it fixed and go back in the house. That's another reason that I'm not filming it, because this is really for me to come in here and work. But we will do some projects on here that we'll probably share. But in the meantime, it sits on a jack stand, and I'm waiting on parts. So there you have it, guys. There's what's going on with the 74 Cherokee. It's not the video I'd hoped for. I hope we'd be out on a trail for this discussion and having a great time, getting it dirty and wind in our hair and the sound of the exhaust and that 401 running. It's coming. It's going to happen soon. I promise, guys, I will. Okay. That's it. That's all I had for this episode of Coffee One Take. I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me for this time. A lot coming. We are going to be doing some really cool stuff at Easter Jeep Safari, so some more content coming while we're out there. If you are out there, please say hello. And if you have not checked us out over at TrailRecon.com, go check us out over there. We've got all kinds of gear. We've got all kinds of merchandise. Regina has a blog post that she's doing over there. And if you are not yet an E3 Overland member, I will leave links down below for everything. Go check it out. You really enjoy all the content we have over at E3 Overland. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. See you in the next video.